My mother was milking cows. They laid her back against the railing and my mother had me sitting in the cow shed. Ka horoinga e te whānau. And she continued, and I went and they took me to the river beside our cow shed. There was a river there. Took me down, they washed me, kaumatua did a karikia, and then I was taken back to the whare, to our house, and life began there for me.
But I still remember Mum saying, you know, I ended up by having to have 4 midwives. Because, you know, we had that system, we had the systems in place 70 years ago where they had midwives and doctors with different mates and all that sort of thing.
No, they weren't hospital type midwives, they were family. They were good mates of Mum's and they just helped her to go through her delivery.
All of us were born at home. There was no talk ever within our family, even today, to be born in a hospital. Today home births and quite a new thing for society. Well, it's not for Indigenous peoples, we've done that for thousands of years.
When I was ready to be born, Dad was the only one there with Mum. They usually, if there was a birth happening, a grandmother or an aunt would sort of stay there. But no, I decided I was in a hurry, so...
After birth, I understand that I did not have anything to do physically with my mother for nearly a year. I was brought up by karaua. I was literally fed from their mouth, so they would put food into their mouth, munch it up, and I would take it from their mouth, or they'd give it to me from their mouth.
The placenta, the pito was, or the whenua was, always buried in a ritual, in a ceremony, and in this particular case, under a wuna tree, which still exists today.
You see, we were all circumcised, and that was, and we all had an injection. And we used to wonder why the Pākehās never had an injection, because they left a little thing up here, and you find that a lot of ones in my age group, they will show you that little scar that's there.
And the old ladies, they knew if their babies were born with club feet to pull them out and to strap them up. And that's what they used to do, and that's what Auntie Ginny wanted to do for me, but my father, being my father, didn't allow it, so I had to put up with what I call the Pākehā system and all the operations and things, and it was terrible, really.
Ki te whānau tō kōtiro, he tāne, he kōtiro, ko hori nā raini tāna ingoa. When your daughter has her child, it'll be either George or Georgina. And so, then she said, ka riro I te tuakana, tō tuakana a hori, he tamariki mana. And so once that child is born, it'll go to the tuakana of our family, which was George, and he's to have that child. So before I was even born, I was given away.
So I knew I had 2 mothers, I had 2 fathers, I had 2 sets of grandparents, I had numerous aunties and uncles, and numerous female cousins and male cousins.
All my aunties were like my mothers. So when they got hungry, when we got hungry, whoever the closest auntie was our mum. They fed us. Our uncles are the same.
The way we were raised, we just considered was normal until we saw our other kids. They had nice shoes, nice sandals, socks in their shoes. That was a rarity as well.
Our wants were few. We shared everything. To go to a house and listen to a program on the radio was to have the whole taki wā there on that one radio. Listen to an All Blacks game or something, everyone joined in.
We had a very close community. We called it the pā, we didn't call it the marae. It was from the pā, and the pā extended up all the homes that was in Parikino.
I assume, like most Māori families, you had kids from other families, and we had the same. Kids used to come into home, or I used to go to their home.
We slept at our uncles, our aunties' places, but everybody would tell George and Harry or whoever, they're at our place, they'd tell them. So it was a bit like that. All our cousins would come and live with us, stay with us, especially during the weekends.
If they come to your place at lunchtime, the whole 9, 12 of them, you fed them. And if they arrived at your place at tea time, you fed them.
You expected to get a feed when you went to someone's house. You expected to get a bed when you went to someone's house.
And we were around adults and people who knew who we were and who would have absolutely no hesitation in correcting us or shouting at us or giving us a real telling off or a clip under the ear if it was necessary. Wherever you were a part of a community.
We didn't have fences, you know.
Right,
When you lived in the country, you had no fences. You just enjoyed yourself, went out and you didn't need shops. You just needed one another.
Right.
When I look back on it, we were happy. Because we didn't have the strength, we never had power. We never had a washing machine. We never had nothing, just what we had in our house. And one bed, we thought have to sleep in one bed. And our blankets were overcoats. But the thing is, you know, I think of it, we survived through that, regardless how the situation, but we never bothered about it. We were happy. We were happy because we probably have never had the stress we have today.
So I think we grew up with a very strong whānau sense of unity, whānau unity. Well, I did, you know, I did. Dad's sisters were always around us. His granny's sisters were always around us. We were never without that kind of covering.
I know that whenever something was going down in the family, with one or other household, that we would move between those houses and we'd be looked after. There wasn't any question about that.
If you had an upset with your mother or your father, you could run to your aunties. And that's what we used to do in those days. So, you know, you were never left on your own, really, because you weren't. And I think if you talk to most people in my era, it'd be the same. We came out of big families, and everybody, and I mean, you know, all siblings have their fights and scraps and rows, because you do. But then you had your aunties and uncles to run to.
But what did I grow up with? You see, I grew up with whakapapa, basically.
Yeah.
Everything that was done, you know, around me, it was always talking about whakapapa.
We knew who we were, we knew how, you know, we were brought up. We taught about our whakapapa and saying you connect here.
And she would have the 5, we had 5 lists of whakapapa who we whakapapa to, and 5 of us had to learn all the whakapapa. Then the next time we went up to see her, we'd move up one and we'd go around till we had to learn all of them. And then she would say, you know, how are you related to Raki Whakaputa? And you had to tell her.
I know who I am. Yeah. I appreciate knowing my whakapapa and never realised how important it is. Hey, they say you know your whakapapa, you know who you are, and you know where you are in life with your whakapapa. I think love was part of the way we were brought up. Yeah. Aroha ki te tangata, aroha ki ngā, ki te whānau. I might have been brought up in the wrong era, but I was brought up like, yeah, you get a screw on here, and etc. But we were cared for as tamariki, right up to rangatahi, you know. We knew we were cared for. If Uncle said a harsh word to us, we knew we deserved it because something needed to be fixed. But normally it's aramai kona e tama, I'll give you a hug, kawa penaya, you know. It's sort of that sort of mentoring.
If there was something that was in my family was family love. And I knew nothing different.
Love was just being together. I think love was just, you know, hey auntie, you know, and acknowledging one another and walking in the door and making yourself at home. love was always known, someone was there, and wherever you went, you were always made to feel special because they knew who you were.
One of the things that they used to do really every weekend, and that they had karakia, you know what I mean, and so everyone used to get back there on a Saturday night, and they had karakia really from Saturday, when you used to go all right through the night, you know what I mean, because oftentimes I'd go to sleep, wake up and it's still going, you know what I mean, early hours of the morning.
Growing up on the marae, you know, you start off in the kitchen, the back of the house, work your way to the front. As young people, we were very, very much in the kitchen. You don't see much of it today, but we all had to do our duties in the kitchen. We all had to do our clean-ups and everything. We looked after our marae, did the gardens. We looked after the urupā as well. You had to go in and clean up the urupā and work in there as well.
I said, what are you doing while you're peeling potatoes? Talking. I said, you're talking. I said, that's right. I said, now, they have one person standing with the machine, who is he going to talk to? Just tipping potatoes into the peeler. I said, that's gone. That sort of thing. That's what our marae was, built around sharing knowledge. You shared knowledge when you were doing that. And after the day on the marae, we used to wait for that, and we had a big open fire, and we'd all go and sit there, and the kaumatua would come along and talk to us. I said, that's where the knowledge was disseminated. I said, now we just turn the switch off and go home.
Ma te tika mai o muri, ka tika mua. Nai roto I te rā kōrero. Tīmata mai I te haere ki te whakarara o te haere I te marae tuatai. Ngā whanaungatanga, te mōhio ki te mahi I te whare o muri. Nā, a tai ki te wā. Te nuru te tai ngā wā kua muihi ana ki au. E mahara nau ko pai te haere o ngā mahi o muri. O mōhio te mahi hāngi, o mōhio te whakatika I ngā kai, te wariu riwai, wariu kūmara I rā mahi katoa. Mea rawa te ko tai mai, te taino a kaumatua o te kāinga. Mea me, he hoa, o tai ki te wā me hare koe ki mua.
I roto I taku haere ki taho taku nene, ona rā nāna I mau iahau. Ki ngā tangiha, ki ngā hui, ki ngā harane. Te tikanga I te moe, te tikanga te moe ahau. Engari kei rera ku taringa paki ana te rongo kōrero.
The marae was our base. I'm grateful of that because it taught me discipline and honour again, and it taught me to honour my kaumatua and kuia.
And so when we get into a marae, it's the women that holds the power there. Because inside the wharehui is what they call rongo peace, eh? So the women control inside with that peaceful harmony that goes on.
So we were brought up that women were special, and you had to care for them. Like if I said something, you know, like sometimes Mum might get up my nose, and I said something, straight away I'd be disciplined, straight away. Not necessarily just by my father, but by my uncles or those other people that were with me. So we were brought up strict to respect parents, to respect older people in us, you know, kaumatua, yeah.
So when my father said, well, you know, go and get the, you know, go and bring the mango maroke because that's what we're having for tea, and I said to him, well, I don't eat rotten food, and then the next minute I knew I was on the ground, flat out on the ground. But I understand now that I had done something that was very wrong in a Māori household, and that was to criticize the food.
We had a beautiful farm. It's not like that anymore. My dad was a hard-working man. And we had a sledge, and every time there was a hui, my mother would take us all around to the hui. We would milk our cows, and then she would take all her crockery, and she'd kill a cow and take the kuia and things like that, right? So what I know of our tikanga, I never forget. I've never forgotten, and so I try to implant those tikanga within the community because it's lost.
And as I've got older, I just think how rich we were in our poorness, Because we had the things that today I would die for, and we had them at our back door.
But everybody had a job when you got home. You did the Māori, and the Māori belonged to the Māori community, so everybody took part in it. Everybody owned things, but things belonged to everybody.
Right from little, you were working. You had to work, you know, because if you did, you couldn't survive, because everybody had to help with the garden and the washing, because there was no modern stuff in those days. You didn't have washing machines or fridges or anything. So, you know, everybody worked, and I think if you talk to anyone in my era, we are all workers.
We were always busy gardening and horse riding and swimming and collecting kai from the awa.
We were born and bred on kaimoana, really, here at Rapaki. We always had to get our own, and we had to go down to the beach here and get crabs and paua and cockles, and we would go down floundering with our father and most of the other people from the pa. They'd take the boat out.
In the old days, kai was an ongoing process, because there was always people coming to eat there.
We all went out to do the garden, to do the mana, the garden, and that's why we always had vegetables. And that's why I said we never wanted, we didn't go hungry, didn't want for anything.
And I think our life sort of evolved around that type of activity where food was involved, either food or mahi, you know, food or mahi.
We learn better, you know, by watching. Yeah, you know what I mean. You know, I do, you watch. You know what I mean, I do, you help. You know what I mean. Now you do, I help. You know, you do, I watch.
You pulled on the skills of observation. What you were growing up, you learned how to cook your kai. You learned how to go and you know, to catch a tuna, or if it was already caught, you know how to pāwhara. If that had already been done, you know how to get the dried tuna out of hanging up under the tree or in the safe, and how to fry it, and how to make your own bread.
It was share a like thing back in that time.
Oh, they were a big party, big do-do too when they opened in the garden.
You never left anybody out?
No.
You didn't leave anybody out in it, so that was, you know, somebody will have a, like, beast or something. They didn't need one died. The beast came from someone. There was never without food. We were never without food, without a lie, you know. There was no struggle for that. Because we worked hard as children. We knew what to do.
In the school, at that time, Māori wasn't allowed to be spoken. And I know you hear that a lot. And I said to you earlier before we started the interview, a lot of people think it's a lot of rubbish, but it's not. You have to have lived it to know.
Ka haere te wā, ka mau ko tahi e rua nei ngā kupu, ko hoki te kāinga, a ko Pākiwaha. Ko ahua kōrero i ngā kupu e rua nei ko mau, ko patua mau nei te kāinga. Nā, mahara nau i au e whakarona, hai marika, ke hoki te mea tika o tōku nei au. Ka haere ki te kura ka kōrero Māori, ka patua, hoki mai te kāinga ka kōrero Pāke, ka patua.
I spoke Māori when I was went to school, and my other siblings were discouraged from speaking Māori. Learn English and get a job. I think I was sort of like the one that, even though I didn't realise it at the time, there's a lot of Māori tikanga taonga was put into me, even though I didn't realise it. I hara mai kone e no whakarona titiro, when I would rather be playing around with all the other tamariki, ia pere there.
Wahanga reo was kore kaupapa, rōpō kapaka, all of those things lend itself to keeping our language alive and our culture, and that we maintain all of that, in our lives.
There were groups, and I mean a lot more than are here today. There were whānau ones there, and then the marae orientated ones, school, sports, Yeah, that's right. There was even that group for us that speak the reo.
I can remember that every Tuesday we had kōrero about our tikanga, and we did the haka, the poi, the action songs, and that was our night for going down to learn.
Tikanga to us, well, as I've grown up into adulthood now, it's just the way things were done. If we think of tikanga in the context of today's world, we talk about processes and protocols that happen in a purely traditional Māori sense, like going to tangianga, poiri onto marae, that sort of tikanga.
Because that's why we say te reo me ona tikanga. Because alongside of that reo is all the tikanga that makes us Māori.
Sometimes all ngā tikanga Pākehā doesn't always fit in with the Māori tikanga. Kei te roko koe a kora. And so, you know, and my nans used to talk about some of the young boys in our community, you know, in our on our path. Kei te whakaaro Māori ke tērā. And that's where I learned, and then they say, kei te whakaaro Pākehā ke tērā. And so I knew that if you were Māori, you were thinking in Māori. If you were Pākehā, had those Pākehā inclinations, you were thinking Pākehā.
And the peer is sort of like a chosen one from the hapū that has been chosen from the time they were born and nurtured to a point, then they send them to the wānau.
I suppose when I think about that, being the oldest, even though I didn't realise that's what you do. Nobody says, oh, you're the oldest, so therefore you're going to have all this stuff put into you, because it might be the last bastion of, you know, te reo, me ona tikanga, you know, marae, protocols, kawa, tikanga, etc. Yeah, you're not told, you sort of just go along and you just do it. You always, in the back of your mind, wonder why. You know, when I think of many of our kaumatua, they trained others who stayed home into those different, you know, those different leadership roles.
When they decide to tap you on the shoulder, they'll say, arawai tai, ka no tāu ki te kōri. And they'll lay it on you. If you don't want it, don't lay.
If a person showed the skills of a warrior, then he would be taken away for that purpose and trained fully in the whānau in that area.
Somebody in the family and that is going to, you know, is going to be a significant leader. You know what I mean? And he turned around and he said, "You're it," you know, like that.
At what point do you call yourself a man and all that? And I sort of grew up thinking at that point that you support yourself, no matter what age you are. If you're earning your dollar, you're paying your own way, you know, I think that's, to me, the first indication that you're ready to stand on your own 2 feet. And I think that's what you want, you know, when you bring your kids in, give them enough skills and knowledge that they can just stand on their own 2 feet.
I left for Auckland. Several of my sisters left for Auckland with their families. In fact, many of their families were born in Auckland. But those that were born on the river and grew up on the river, there was a similar culture, similar expectation. You know, there was no such thing in those days of sitting in the comfort of the front of the car with the heater on when you came from Rānana to Wanganui. You sat at the back, you know, under a tarpaulin, rain, hail or snow. And if you were lucky to go to Wanganui, otherwise you stay home and you saw your parents go to Wanganui and you see them come home a week later. And in that sense, it wasn't as if Dad and that neglected us for a week. It was that I see it now in hindsight as a school of training, you know, school of learning. Yeah. And my sister, my brother, myself, we were fantastic cooks, I tell you, we still are.
My father said, "You're 12 now, it's time to learn to drive a car." And so I was put in a paddock on my uncle's cousin's farm with the old 37 Chev, and I just drove it all around the paddocks.
You know, mai rāno I taku meta ki taku māma te wā ora nei. Mum, you know, did I do that? Yes, you did. Why? What's the difference? Why wasn't it? Mua aua. Meta te kai, you know, ko muhi au tēnei mea te āhuatanga te tikanga o te karanga. He hai koutou I tuki ahau ki haere ki te karanga, whānau o katau. Oh, muhi o koe. Ano.
They go missing, will go missing, you know, for a little time. But I know where, you know, what somebody would term go missing. Well, for us, was just simply going into the bush, going a bit of pig hunting, deer stalking, berry finding, middle berries, you know, tracking possums, those sorts of things. They'll go missing for a couple of days, you know. But we were young.
And we were allowed to do that as young boys. My dad would drop 3 or 4 of us off at the end of the road at Island Bay, and we'd walk around beyond Red Rocks and camp for a couple of nights. We'd live on sausages and baked beans and bits of stuff like this that we carted around there. We'd have just agree that by a certain time we would be back at the tram. We'd have some money to get a tram from the terminus, and our parents would maybe meet us. But it was nothing to have a couple of 10, 11-year-olds or younger just clearing off for a couple of days like that.
But yeah, I think that's when you enter adulthood, is when you take responsibility. Again, there's a lot of things that got to come before it, a lot of things have to be in place. As you lead up to that, that sense of yourself, the sense of belonging, that I don't think a lot of our kids have got now, because the base hasn't been set.
As children, we accepted what our grandparents taught us. We listened, even though it appeared as though we weren't. We listened, we heard. It wasn't until later life that we're able to piece all those jigsaw puzzles together.
Here I am, a Ngāti Pro, 16-year-old country bumpkin, dropped in the middle of Auckland, at the bottom of this driveway. Basically the corridor was, nobody owes you a thing. Put your head down, your bummer, go get your future. And if you get stuck, here's my phone number. And I remember crying then when he left, and I thought, saying it in English sounds rude. I thought, yo, bugger. But really, when I think about it, I look back at that now, those are the words I needed. Yeah, I look back and I thought they were really prophetic words that allowed me to forge a future for myself. Yeah. And so every time I wanted to give up, I think of my uncle. Nobody owes you a thing. Put your head down, your bummer, get your future. And I suppose that's forged my life. Yeah. I don't feel sorry for myself. I just, if things don't happen, make it happen. Yeah.
Being Māori means, for me, that you've got a family that's not this big, but it's this big.
Oh, I've always been a Māori, because that's the way we lived. Now, at that stage too, you know, we had schools and we had farmers. We were really a mixed group of people. And so the Pākehās lived up the hill and we lived down by the beach.
Right.
So, you know, it was never a decision that, you know, was made.
Right.
Like some people today.
Now I realise that I was a significant person, and I belonged to a significant people called Māori that belonged to a particular place called Ormini River. I think that came in probably later teenage years. Up until that it was all about social activity, about having fun, you know, working hard.
I think being Māori is today, Tūmeke, kaumatua, yeah. I mean when I was in Auckland in 1963, Māori had no value whatsoever. It was koretake. People were trying to hone it, but to be honest, it was koretake.
You always knew there was something different. And going to school and society in general will provide you with that sort of distinction anyway.
Quite proud of the fact that I am Māori. I am quite proud of the fact that I'm one of the First Nations of this country.
I count myself blessed that I grew up in those days. as hard as it was, because I learnt two things. I learnt to be a Māori and I learnt to be a Pākehā.
I don't stick my karaiti tanga over here and my Māori tanga over there. For me, they're holistic. Yeah, they're holistic.
Wairuatanga? Yeah. Oh, that's my life, dear. You know, if I do anything wrong, it's not my fault. I blame my nanny. You fellas didn't show me the right way. You took me down there instead of taking me down there.
But I think in my terms of spirituality is what goodness that you can actually give from here, is where it's all to come from, not here, but from here, out to people out there.
Part of Māoridom is learning to look after the next generation. I mean, we were trained in that as young people. You always had to look after the next one down and the next one down.
I counted fortunate really to be able to have been brought up in that area. I'm sorry for my boy missing out some of that quality life on the river. That's what I call quality life.
Mm-hmm. So I think this generation's missing out. The generation from the 60s to the 80s have kind of gone wild and off the track, and there's no discipline, there's no dads. You know, dads play a big part. I don't care how strict they were, they play a big part in bringing up a family. You know, I wonder about the kids of today. We are the males, we are the role models. It's all mum bringing up kids now.
Just today, we bring up a 10-year-old as if they were 20 and 30. They're way beyond their, carry on. Yeah. To be 10 and act like a 10-year-old and be treated like 10 was familiar to me.
And I think some of the changes has been the ingredients we've lost in our whānau. And those ingredients in a lot of whānau, they haven't got that. Kuia, koroa, dad, mum.
They are missing out on a journey. On a journey, they just, I'm missing it now. Freedom, to make mistakes was okay.
Goodness, they haven't got any values at all. A lot of the rangatahi don't have the values that we grew up with, you know, whanaungatanga.
So our young people are missing that solid grounding that we had as kids and that solid connectiveness to our Māoridom, to who we were as Māori. We're missing a whole generation of highly intelligent young people that could be really productive in this world if only they had been brought up the way we were, you know, with that honour and that respect and our old people being in the middle.
No, lots of good stuff came in colonisation, but that individualistic stuff, you know, I think it's tragic to us as Māori. You know, what it's done is created a pyramid, so whoever's on the top is top, and everybody else just has to get wherever they can fit. You know, that ladder for whakaaro, whereas, you know, how do we grow together, how do we share with one another so that we can all go somewhere positive together.
And I think the children need to learn that everything has a consequence. Whatever they do, there are consequences that you have to come to terms with.
O kia nei, mea te whakaroa rātou. You know, kia koutou, ngā kaiako. The rātou kei te haere ki te kura.
They're guiding, that's what it is, guiding, not controlling their lives. It's about guiding, ensuring you've given enough to them to make up their own mind.
The support of the whānau. Support of the whānau. That's where the strength for our children is going to come from. Whether they know it, whether the whānau knows it or not, but that's where it comes from.
The greatest thing that we can do in Māoridom is to have respect and care for our families.
To our young people out there, they must follow the pathway to find knowledge for themselves, and not only knowledge within Te Reo or the Māori world. Don't sit in his house and think that it'll come to him because it's the way it's always been. Because he needs to go into tauiwis and have a look at how that house is built, pull it apart, tutu with it, see how it's put back together, and so that he can walk the world with both those mātauranga.
Albert Einstein said the significant problems we face today cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. So it requires a different mind to look at tomorrow. Do I think the world's changed? Absolutely, but it has to change. There's some things you hope don't change, and that's it. That we value ourselves, we respect ourselves, we value the people around us. The world's made up of people, not things. So, I think having those people skills, be able to interact, be able to mingle, be able to socialise, all those sort of things.
I would like to see where, we can take our kids out of school into an environment to show them how do courts operate,
right?
How do prisons operate, to make them sort of see and learn from it, whether they want to go down that track or go down this other track.
I think one thing that we definitely can do is we can get people together and take them to the marae and say, right, here's a block of land. Let's do grow some kai in that there and go down to the end of Jigalandi there and maybe set up, sell some for something. Or give it away rather than let it rot, and have that sharing.
With the training, the parent training that's available now, I think that I'm praying that that'll turn a generation around, because it is about communication, love, and being with the children. It is all about that. It's about good communication.
If it means taking them to a marae, making them uncomfortable, take them there.
The ordinary artisan skills which make it possible for you to rebuild the urupa fence so it looks great, to fix the roof of the marae so it doesn't leak, to do all this other modern stuff. People, once they believe they can do something, feel better about themselves. Once they feel better about themselves, they feel confident to do other things, take on new challenges. The key to that is having the adult input.
Kōrero tika atu ki te rai tonu. Talk directly to the mokopuna, to there. Kanohe te kanohe. Tika ngā Māori te rani. Pena koe ka hie ki te tanga, kōrero te tangata. Kaue ngauhia te tuara. Kōrero tu ki te kanohe.
We mustn't, as parents, stop talking to our children. Even if it means having to repeat yourself. And they'll come back and say to you, oh mum, don't go there, don't. And I said, I have to. I have to be sure that you heard me so that you will pass it on to your children.
I think of rāranga, that's weaving, but I think of one strand, okay, of that whāriki, that beautiful taonga whāriki. And I think for rangatahi, my mahi as Pakeke is to help that single strand to find their way, their proper place in the whāriki of life. Yes, I think that's important. So rangatahi is just trying to find where they fit with all the pains that come with being rangatahi. But just understanding is part of their journey of finding where they fit as a rangatahi. And hopefully the dream is they'll be rangatira. Okay, some people say chief, and yeah, that's all very nice. But for me, it's ranga. They've arrived, and it's being able to have that mantle that can facilitate rangatira, the group. So it's being able to have that mantle that allows them through experience, mokopuna, rangatahi, rangatira, to be able to have those skills, to be able to facilitate whakaaro and mahi that allows our people to find their place in the tira, in the group, or the completed whāriki of life.
Kia
rangi e ki ngā ngaru au heke i te hakahe te ngā o matua tonga e o matua i tira o ue nuku whakarongo o pare nui te rā mai haua ki nui mai haua ki roa haua ki pamama o te hononga wairua o te pohe mai e ngā uri o marere o tonga te aua hituro ko tahi ko tautoro ko ngā tariki e ko tawere ko mere arihi tūnui o rangi tūtara kau i ka ngakai arahi o mango pare tuki tuki o te mananu yaki wa tere tere ngā peka ata paka tere tere ngā tohuki tae kei waho te ara tau whaingara hoia te waka ora uruki tahi kia tangi te wini wini e kia tangi te